Let's go Broncos! We've had some pretty big news in the last few hours, and for some fans and analysts, this could be a huge opportunity for the Broncos. Before you continue, make sure you've already hit the like button if you believe the Denver Broncos need new reinforcements for 2025. If possible, comment below if you're for or against Myles Garrett coming to the Broncos. I'll leave that up to you to decide. After years of struggling to find consistency, head coach Sean Payton is setting the stage for a complete rebuild, targeting key areas that need improvement while also navigating a divided fan base over a potential blockbuster trade. The biggest question for the Broncos? Whether or not the team should push all of its chips to the center of the table and make a move for Cleveland Browns star defensive end Myles Garrett. Garrett's public trade request sent shockwaves through the league, and the Broncos emerged as one of the teams rumored to be in the mix. The idea of adding a generational pass rusher like Garrett has split the fan base right down the middle. On one hand, some argue that you don't hesitate when a player of his caliber becomes available. A force on the defensive line who can single-handedly change the course of a game, Garrett would immediately elevate Denver's already strong defensive unit to an elite level. But is this the right move for this team? That's where the debate gets interesting. The Broncos' defensive line was one of the best in football last season, led by young, hungry players like Nik Bonitto and Jonathan Cooper. The belief in Denver's front office is that these rising stars are just scratching the surface of their potential. Jonah Elliss is expected to take another step forward, and there's confidence that the team's edge rushers can hold their own without needing to sacrifice crucial draft capital for an expensive addition like Garrett. Would it really make sense to invest heavily in a position that isn't a glaring weakness, especially when there are far greater needs elsewhere on the roster? That's where Sean Payton's vision for rebuilding the Broncos like a puzzle comes into play. He's approaching this offseason knowing that nearly 40% of the roster turns over every year, and instead of just making flashy moves, he's focusing on strategically filling the most pressing gaps. 3 positions have been identified as top priorities: tight end, wide receiver, and inside linebacker. And when you take a closer look, it's clear why these areas need immediate attention. The tight end position, in particular, was a disaster last season. Denver's entire tight end group combined for just 483 receiving yards all year. To put that into perspective, college rookie Brock Bowers had more receiving yards in just 6 games with multiple subpar quarterbacks throwing to him. The lack of production at tight end severely limited the Broncos' offensive versatility, and it's clear that Payton is determined to address it. The question is, how will he do it? Free agency doesn't seem to be the answer, and while there are rumors that Kyle Pitts could be available in a trade, the most likely solution appears to be through the NFL draft. The 2 tight ends that have emerged as top targets are Michigan's Colston Loveland and Penn State's Tyler Warren. Loveland is an explosive, yards-after-catch specialist who would add a dynamic element to the Broncos' screen game, a staple of Payton's offensive philosophy. Warren, on the other hand, is the more physical, Rob Gronkowski-type player who can dominate in the red zone and as a blocker. The debate now is whether Denver should target one of these game-changers with the 20th overall pick. But the draft strategy extends beyond tight end. Denver still has question marks at wide receiver, with uncertainty surrounding the current group. Inside linebacker is also a position that needs reinforcement. And then there's the looming question of whether the Broncos should draft based on need or simply take the best player available when they're on the clock. This offseason will define the next chapter for the Denver Broncos. Should the team go all in on a trade for Myles Garrett, or should they focus on building a balanced, long-term contender through the draft? Should they prioritize fixing the tight end position or look to strengthen the roster elsewhere? Broncos country, the front office may have some tough decisions to make, but we want to hear from you. What's the best path forward for Denver? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and let's get this debate going. One thing is clear, Sean Payton is not treating this as a simple roster adjustment. He's treating it as a complete structural rebuild. He's looking at this team from every angle, and that means tough decisions will have to be made. The Broncos don't have the luxury of a stacked draft war chest or an abundance of cap space, so every move must be calculated. Trading for Myles Garrett would be a game changer, but it would also be incredibly expensive. The latest reports suggest that Cleveland's asking price is steep: a first-round pick, multiple mid-round picks, and potentially a player. That means parting ways with valuable assets in a draft where the Broncos already need to be smart. This is where the debate becomes real. Do you mortgage a piece of the future for a superstar talent, or do you trust the development of players like Nik Bonitto and Jonathan Cooper? There's an argument to be made that Denver's pass rush is actually in a great place. The emergence of young talent last season showed that this is already a formidable unit, and adding Garrett might not be necessary. Instead, the Broncos could use their resources to fix more pressing concerns, like the offense. The Broncos' tight end struggles aren't just an inconvenience, they're a massive liability. A playmaking tight end is crucial for an offense to function at a high level, and Denver's lack of production from that position last season severely hampered their ability to stretch the field. That's why so much attention is being placed on Colston Loveland and Tyler Warren. Both prospects bring different skill sets, but either one would be an instant upgrade over what Denver had last season. The wide receiver position is another area of focus. While Courtland Sutton remains a key piece, the Broncos need to surround their quarterback with more weapons. There's been speculation about Denver targeting a receiver early in the draft, especially with a player like Bo Nix potentially coming in as the new face of the offense. If that's the case, adding a reliable, game-breaking target is a must. Whether that comes through free agency, a trade, or the draft remains to be seen, but it's something Payton is clearly prioritizing. Then there's the inside linebacker situation. Denver's defense has always thrived when it has a strong presence in the middle, and that's an area that still needs to be addressed. With teams in the AFC West continuing to load up on offensive firepower, the Broncos need a linebacker who can cover ground, make plays in the run game, and be a leader in the middle of the defense. At the heart of all of this is Sean Payton's philosophy. He's not looking for quick fixes, he's trying to build something sustainable. That means resisting the temptation of flashy moves if they don't align with the bigger picture. It's why trading for Myles Garrett might not be the right call, even though it's tempting. The Broncos need to be smart with their limited draft capital and cap space, and Payton knows it. So, Broncos country, this is where we need your input. Should the team go all in on Myles Garrett, or should they focus on adding key pieces through the draft? Is fixing the tight end position the top priority, or should Denver focus on wide receiver, inside linebacker, or another position entirely? And when the Broncos are on the clock with the 20th overall pick, should they take the best player available, or draft based on need? This offseason is going to shape the future of the franchise, and every decision matters. Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. What's the best move for the Denver Broncos? Let's keep the conversation going. And as always, stay tuned for more updates as we get closer to the draft. The Denver Broncos are at a crossroads this offseason, with major decisions looming. Sean Payton is focused on rebuilding the team strategically, addressing key areas like tight end, wide receiver, and inside linebacker. While Myles Garrett's trade request has sparked debate, the question remains, is trading significant draft capital for a defensive superstar the right move? Or should Denver prioritize its existing young talent on the defensive line? The Broncos' biggest need may be at tight end, where last season's production was among the worst in the league. Potential draft targets like Colston Loveland and Tyler Warren could transform the position, giving the offense a much-needed boost. Wide receiver depth and linebacker play are also concerns, making the team's draft strategy critical. With the 20th overall pick, Denver must decide whether to draft based on need or take the best player available. Every move will shape the future of this franchise, and Payton is building for sustained success, not just short-term fixes. So, Broncos country, what's the best path forward? Should the team trade for Garrett, draft a top-tier tight end, or strengthen other positions? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and let's break it all down as we head into a pivotal offseason for the Denver Broncos.